Hello everybody, David Abram here. Welcome back to my channel as always. And for today's video, I want to revisit an earlier video, but I want to tackle this subject from a different angle. And this subject is the subject of shame language. And the reason I bring up shame language again, even though I did previously, is because I want to sort of analyze what I believe from my perspective as a MGTOW, what shame language really teaches those who have taken the red pill or have, reached the conclusion of MGTOW. And this video is really inspired by one of Neo Unplugged's videos about shame language. And in the video, he briefly talks about how people pass judgment on MGTOWs with their imagination in a sense of who we are and what we look like, because we don't show our faces. But I want to talk about this shame language in a different perspective. What does it really teach us? And I think one of the most important things that shame language teaches us is that people can be lazy, not in the body, but in the mind. And in my standing and point, that's what I think shame language really is. Shame language is laziness. And the reason I say this is because how much empiricism is required when you use shame language? How much factualization is required when you use shame language? So, when you ever encounter these individuals who project this shame language in the form of ad hominems at your direction in an attempt to personally attack you as an individual or attack your ego or your self-confidence, what they're really telling you in so many words between the lines is that they're lazy. Not in the body, but they're lazy in the mind. Because what they're really telling you is, hey, I'm too lazy to ask further questions as to why you hold your standing grounds that you do. I'm too lazy to use empiricism. I'm too lazy to use my higher cortex instead of my lizard mind. So, what does this shame language really tell us? It tells us that they're literally acting off of their biological impulses and establishing a hierarchy over you, as Neo Unplugged pointed out. It's a biological hierarchy. And in the world of biology, generally speaking, the hierarchy is that of what can the male do for their significant partner. In other words, how good of a provider are they? Or are they capable of obtaining a mate? And when you hold the viewpoint of, the dating scene isn't worth it, or cohabitation is not worth it, or long-term committed relationships are not worth it, automatically you are met with skepticism, but not because of empiricism, but because of laziness. These same individuals are the ones who, rather than thinking outside of the box, will jump with the group collective, never stepping outside of that collective. And when you do hear this shame language, just bear that in mind. It's not a matter of you being wrong, or you, doing something wrong as an individual, or that your opinions or your beliefs or viewpoints are wrong. In fact, when it comes to opinions, there is really no right or wrong, in my viewpoint as a MGTOW. However, just because one person has an opinion that differs from another doesn't mean that their opinions don't hold any sort of empiricism behind us. So, take MGTOWs, for example, who are against marriage. We're all against marriage. Yeah, we have the opinion that marriage is a waste of time and the risks associated with doing so outweigh the rewards, but it's not just a bland opinion that has no rationale behind it whatsoever, or any empiricism or factualization. Whenever MGTOWs usually bring up the subject of marriage, they usually accompany it with statistics to support their argument or their opinion, such as 50 to 60% divorce rate. 9 times out of 10, child custody will go to the female, etc., etc. So, in a nutshell, one can have an opinion, but their opinions can also still be based off of factualization and empiricism. And people who use shame language or project shame language onto MGTOW, what they're really telling you is they're lazy. And think of it as this. If you could burn less calories and accomplish the same task, would you? And that's how I think these minds of those ones who use shame language sort of operate. In other words, they say to themselves, how can I spend the least amount of time and the least amount of investment and burn the least amount of calories? And the way they do that is ad hominems, because ad hominems don't require a whole lot of thought. Ad hominems don't actually require you to sort of analyze and deconstruct what the other person has said, and then, after deconstructing what they said, use some empiricism and factualizations to support your counter-argument and to make that counter-argument. Doesn't really require you do that. It's easy to say a person who doesn't have a girlfriend, it's easy to say to them that they're a basement dweller, or they're a loser who can't get laid, or this, that, and the third. Because that doesn't take a lot of work and empiricism. That doesn't take a lot of questioning. That doesn't take a lot of efforts and rationale. And that's why they will immediately brand MGTOWs as basement dwellers, losers, and, frankly, just failures in the mating game or the rat race. Why do they do this? In the end, what it all boils down to, or at least in my theory, is laziness. Laziness to think abstractly, laziness to bear an open mind, and laziness to actually deconstruct an argument brought forth to their attention. And that's why on MGTOW channels, such as Sandman's and Truth Over Everything, and a lot of other nifty MGTOW content creators, you see these shame tactics in the comment sections, if you've noticed. And if you ever read these comments, you'll notice usually it's emotional, or if it's not emotional, it's ad hominem to try to get them to submit back into the game, as MGTOW's quoted. And what they're really attempting to do with these comments is to diverge an argument, because they have no argument against what we say. And that's another thing about shame language. This is why the media uses the branding shame language when they say deadbeat fathers, or they, like in Japan, think about the herbivore man and the meat-eating men. The reason they use this shame language is, I think in part, is because, one, they do want to try to get that demographic to resubmit back into their, circle, and two, because they may not really exactly be why, or understand why this certain demographic has the beliefs they have, and they can't really make a counter-argument against it. So they will immediately resort to the ad hominems, because trying to construct a counter-argument would take too much time and analytical, observation and analytical thinking to do so. So they use shame languages. And as Red Pillars and as MGTOW, I just want to remind you all, when you hear this shame language, you could actually right there in front counteract what they say, or you could just turn the other cheek and just kind of have a little nice smile. Because shame language is here. It's always been here, always probably will be here, and chances are it's not going away. So the best thing we can learn to do as Red Pillars and as MGTOWs is to try to adapt accordingly. Because some things are just there, and the best we can do is navigate through them. This has been Squared. Do you agree? Do you think I'm spot on? Do you disagree? Like, dislike? And if you did fancy this video, please do subscribe, like, and until the next time, cheers.